Joining me now is Thad Levine, Senior VP and GM of the Minnesota Twins. Thad, thank you so much for doing this. With pitchers and catchers reporting this week to spring training, first of all, just how excited are you and how thrilled are you to see fans back in the stands at Hammond Stadium shortly?
Well, it's so great to reconnect with the staff and the players now. Unfortunately, so much of our offseason has been dominated with conversations around whether we were going to be able to start on time. I think everyone's so encouraged that we are down here. We're getting to see players move around. We're going to start seeing workouts here in the next day or two. And I think we're just all hopeful and keeping our fingers crossed that if we can stay in compliance with some of these protocols, that we're going to have baseball here in the near term.
The Twins open up the spring training regular season schedule on the 28th against the Red Sox. First of all, can you walk me through how different of a spring training this will be, kind of playing the 5 same teams throughout the course of spring training?
Well, it's the biggest difference so far is just how few people we have down here. Usually we have an opportunity to bring a good representation of our player development staff and our front office group down here. We're a little bit leaner. Now everyone seems to be wearing masks with more frequency, which is the exact right thing to do. You mentioned earlier, I think the biggest excitement for the players right now is the prospect of playing in front of fans again. I think you underestimate how much energy they derive from the fans, how much they enjoy connecting with the fans, and especially some of those longtime fans and some of the newest fans. Like they love the making memories for those guys. I remember talking to Byron Buxton one day, and he said he feels he plays at his best when he takes the attitude that every day is a chance to make a new memory for a new fan who's come to maybe their first game. And I think so many of the players play with that same level of enthusiasm. With regards to the teams we're playing down here, I think the good news is there's enough variety and there won't be that many long road trips. So I think our guys would much rather play a few teams and take fewer bus trips across the state. But in our estimation, one of the benefits for us is we're playing against some of the best teams in the major leagues. So we should walk into the season extremely well battle tested. Almost all the teams we're playing down here are teams that are projected to play in the playoffs this year. So I think we feel like we'll have tremendous competition throughout spring training. That can only help prepare us for the early season.
And I know the players are extremely excited to play in front of limited fans in spring training, but is that kind of a sign as to what's to come for the regular season? What are talks looking like right now in terms of having fans return in limited capacity to Target Field?
I think you guys would be surprised to know how much the players talk about that, because I think they view fans as just a harbinger of the game returning to what they love. I think our team is one of those types of teams that really draws energy from the fans, but also if fans are in the stands, that also likely means that the players can have a little bit more connection with each other. One of the biggest changes in spring training is we have our pitchers and catchers, and they're in the minor league camp. Our position players are over in the major league camp, so they're not even in the same locker room right now. So when you're trying to build chemistry and some of that morale in galvanizing the team, it's really tough to do when the players are separated. So I think fans in the stands means that the players will be able to engage not only with the fans, but also that they'll be able to engage a little bit more with each other. I think we're one of those teams that we're not particularly blue collar. We're not particularly working like we draw so much energy from one another and from the fans. I think those two things will help us immensely perform this year.
In terms of off-season acquisitions, J.A. Happ, Alex Colomé recently signed Marwin Gonzalez, Eddie Rosario, a couple of guys on their way out. So as you kind of reflect upon what was accomplished this off-season, one, how would you rate it? And two, is there anything left that you as an organization would still like to accomplish?
I'd say one of the most challenging parts of this job, John Hart once told me, aspire to have the same or more impact players in year 2 than you had in year 1, but never set the goal that you have the same players. And I know our fans get so connected to some of our players, and quite frankly, so do we. At the heart of it, Derek and I are fans like everybody else. You have emotional ties to players, but really our jobs are to stay committed to the fans. We're aspirational of bringing in as many players who can help us win a championship each year as we did in the last, but not necessarily the same guys. So we do see a lot of the guys who were part of the identity of this club aren't with us next year. But that being said, I think we're extremely optimistic about some of the players we brought in, that they're going to fit different roles. 2019, this team took on the identity of the Bomba squad. And this offseason, we probably addressed a little bit more on the pitching and defensive side of things. And so as we walk into spring training, we're really exhilarated at the notion of getting to see Andrelton Simmons play shortstop. He's one of the best defensive players of this era. It moves Jorge Polanco to second base, where we think he has a chance to win a Gold Glove. We get Josh Donaldson back and healthy. We think he's a Gold Glove caliber third baseman. Byron Buxton's defensive prowess speaks for itself. Max Kepler, and then our two catchers, and Ryan Jeffress and Mitch Garber, we think are well above average defensive players. So we may end up having a very different type of identity this year, but we still think this is a championship caliber club.
Speaking of identity, one guy who really is the heart and soul of this Twins team, Nelson Cruz, brought back on a 1-year, $13 million deal. What were those conversations like behind closed doors? And we have heard that he is so excited to be back in the Twin Cities. So how does that make you feel?
Well, and I didn't mean to disrespect him by not listing him as one of our defenders, but the man carries a pretty big stick. I think, the fans get to see what he does between the lines, and it's prodigious power. This guy is extremely special. Talk about a guy who has a chance to make a memory for a fan any given night. His ability to hit good pitching. But I think, people look at him as a huge power guy. In practice, he also has led our team in hits the last couple of years as well. So he really does it all when he's at the plate. But what he does in the clubhouse may be equally as impactful to this organization. He had big shoes to fill. When he came in, it was on the heels of Joe Mauer leaving this organization. And for a long time, Joe had been the leader in the clubhouse. He had been the captain of the team. And Nelson does it in a very different way. But I think Nelson really espouses this feeling of work as hard as you possibly can before the game starts. And then when the game starts, play with some emotion, be the best version of yourself, but let the fans know, let the other team know that you're having a really good time beating their cabooses. And I think that's an identity that our young group has really embraced. They've been playing with a lot of emotion. They each have their own personalities. They all shine during the course of the game. I think Nelson really paved the way for that. Additionally, I think he's been tremendous in our community. What this guy does philanthropically is pretty significant, both in the Dominican Republic and the United States. And I think that was acknowledged last year. And I think that's something that he doesn't necessarily trumpet, but I think is going to be part of his legacy when he becomes like a serious contender for the Hall of Fame.
Well, Thad, thank you so much for joining me this morning. We look forward to following the team throughout spring training, and of course the home opener on the road April 1st in Milwaukee. It's going to be here before you know it, so we appreciate your time.
Well, hopefully next time we're talking with fans in the stands and players on the field, but thank you for your time.